My name is Louis and I want to tell you a story that turned my life upside down. This happened in America, in a small town in Oregon, where I worked as a mechanic at the local auto service station. Pamela and I had been together for 3 years. We met at a cafe where she worked as a waitress, and I stopped by for coffee after another tough day at work. She was beautiful, long blonde hair, green eyes, and a smile that made my heart skip a beat. We immediately clicked and soon we started dating. After 2 years, I proposed to her by the lake where we often spent our weekends. Pamela said yes with tears in her eyes, and we began planning our wedding. I was the happiest man on earth. The last months before the wedding flew by quickly. Pamela took care of organizing the celebration, while I tried to save as much money as possible to make our wedding unforgettable. I worked overtime, took extra shifts, even picked up side jobs fixing cars for neighbors. But the real shock was waiting for me later. Looking back now, I realized there were signs I should have noticed. Pamela had become more secretive with her phone, always keeping it face down when we were together. Sometimes she would get calls and step outside to answer them, claiming it was about wedding preparations. She seemed distracted during our conversations as if her mind was elsewhere. One evening, about 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from work to surprise her with dinner from her favorite restaurant. The apartment was empty, but I could hear the shower running. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing with notifications. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and saw several messages from someone named K, with heart emojis. My stomach dropped, but when I heard the shower stop, I quickly looked away. When Pamela came out, I asked casually who K was. "Oh, that's just Katie from work," she said without hesitation. "She's helping me plan some wedding stuff." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. 3 weeks before the wedding, I noticed Pamela had started going to the gym more frequently. She said she wanted to look perfect in her wedding dress. She would leave early in the morning on weekends, claiming the gym was less crowded then. Sometimes she wouldn't return until late afternoon. "How was your workout?" I'd ask. "Great. Really intense today," she'd reply, but she never seemed particularly tired or sweaty. 1 week before the wedding, Pamela announced that her friends were organizing a bachelorette party for her. I was a bit surprised since she hadn't mentioned it before, but I thought it was normal, girls wanting to have fun before the big day. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Oh, nowhere special. We're just gathering at Jennifer's house, we'll drink some wine, watch a movie," she replied, not looking me in the eyes. On Friday evening, when she was getting ready to leave, I noticed she dressed quite elegantly for a home party. She wore a tight black dress that I'd never seen before, high heels, and she'd done her makeup more carefully than usual. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem like a jealous controller. "Have fun, honey. See you tomorrow." I kissed her goodbye. She returned home the next day around noon, looking tired. She said they stayed up late, talked a lot about the future, drank wine. I didn't bother her with questions, though something felt off about her story. But what I didn't know was that Jennifer had been watching everything. Our wedding took place at the local Pine Valley Hotel. We rented a large hall and invited all our friends and relatives. The day was perfect, sunny weather. All the guests came dressed up and happy. I woke up that morning feeling like the luckiest man alive. After 3 years with Pamela, I was finally going to make her my wife. I had saved up enough money for a decent honeymoon in Hawaii, and we had already put a deposit down on a small house just outside town. The ceremony went wonderfully. Pamela looked like a princess in her white dress. When we exchanged vows, I saw tears of happiness in her eyes. Or at least that's what I thought I saw. "I promise to love you, honor you, and be faithful to you for all the days of my life," she said, looking directly into my eyes. Those words would haunt me later. After the formal part, we moved to the banquet hall. My best friend Jake, who was the master of ceremonies, had prepared several surprises. He said he wanted to show a video presentation about our life together. "Friends, now we're going to watch the love story of Louis and Pamela," Jake announced, and the big screen lit up. At first, everything went as planned: photos from our joint travels, moments from our dates, footage from the engagement. The guests smiled, someone even shed a tear. But suddenly something appeared on the screen that shouldn't have been there. The video showed Pamela in an unfamiliar place. It wasn't Jennifer's house. She was in some bar or club, dancing with an unknown man. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe some old file got into the presentation by accident. But the video continued. Pamela was kissing that man. Passionately, tenderly. The camera followed them as they left the bar together, getting into his car, driving to a nearby hotel. The footage was clear, undeniable. There was no mistaking what was happening. The hall gradually fell silent. All the guests were watching the screen in shock. I stood frozen, unable to believe my eyes. Pamela turned pale as a sheet and grabbed my hand. "Louis, I can explain everything," she began. But the video wasn't over yet. Text appeared on the screen: Friday, March 15th, Pamela's bachelorette party. That was exactly the date when she was supposedly at Jennifer's. But the worst part was that the man in the video turned out to be Kevin, my colleague from work. The same Kevin who was sitting at one of the tables and also watching the screen with horror on his face. Jake frantically tried to turn off the projector, but it was too late. Everyone had already seen everything. "Who did this?" Pamela screamed. "Who filmed this video?" I looked around the hall and noticed a strange smile on Jennifer's face, the same friend at whose house the bachelorette party supposedly took place. She stood up and approached us. "I'm sorry, Louis," Jennifer said, "but I couldn't let you marry her without knowing the truth. I followed Pamela that Friday and filmed everything on my phone. I gave Jake the video, telling him it was a surprise for you too." The hall erupted in commotion. Some guests started getting up and leaving. My parents sat in shock. Pamela's parents didn't know where to look either. "This is all lies," Pamela shouted. Jennifer lied. "This is a setup." But I saw her face. I saw the guilt in her eyes. And Kevin also stood up and quietly left the hall without saying a word. But that wasn't the end of the revelations that night. As the chaos unfolded, more details began to emerge. Jennifer approached me with her phone in hand. "Louis, there's more you need to see," she said quietly, away from the crowd. "This affair has been going on for months." She showed me more photos and videos she had taken over time, Pamela and Kevin meeting at different locations, holding hands in parking lots, entering and leaving motels together. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Jennifer, my voice breaking. "I wanted to be absolutely sure before I destroyed your life," she replied. "I hoped I was wrong, but when she lied about the bachelorette party, I knew I had to act. You deserved to know before you legally bound yourself to her." Jennifer explained that she had been suspicious for weeks. She worked part-time at the same gym where Pamela claimed to be working out, and she had never seen her there. When Jennifer asked the staff about Pamela, they said no one by that name had a membership. "I started following her on weekends," Jennifer admitted. She wasn't going to the gym at all. She was meeting Kevin at various locations around town. Coffee shops, restaurants, parks, always places where you wouldn't normally go. Meanwhile, Pamela was trying to salvage the situation. She grabbed the microphone from Jake and addressed the stunned wedding guests. "Please everyone, don't believe what you just saw. This is all a misunderstanding. Jennifer is trying to ruin my wedding because she's jealous that Louis chose me over her." But her words fell on deaf ears. The video evidence was too clear, too damning. Even her own family members were looking at her with disappointment and shame. My mother approached me, tears streaming down her face. "Son, I'm so sorry. We can cancel everything right now. You don't have to go through with this." I looked around the room at the expensive decorations, the wedding cake we had spent hours choosing, the flowers Pamela had insisted on, the guests who had traveled from far away. All of it suddenly felt meaningless. "Mom, call Uncle Robert. He's a lawyer." "I need to know my options," I said quietly. Kevin's absence became more conspicuous as the evening wore on. Someone mentioned they saw him quickly packing his things from the hotel room he had booked for the weekend and leaving through the back exit. He didn't even try to explain or apologize. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As I was talking to my uncle about the legal implications of calling off the wedding, Pamela's own sister, Rebecca, approached me with tears in her eyes. "Louis, I need to tell you something," she said, looking around nervously. "The affair with Kevin, it started right after your engagement party last year." My blood ran cold. That meant Pamela had been cheating on me for almost our entire engagement. All those months of planning our future together, choosing our apartment, talking about starting a family, she was living a double life the entire time. "How do you know this?" I asked. "Kevin confided in my boyfriend Mark at a company party 6 months ago. He was drunk and bragging about it. Mark told me, but I didn't know how to tell you. I kept hoping it would end on its own." Rebecca went on to explain that Kevin had been boasting about his secret relationship with an engaged woman, describing intimate details that made it clear he was talking about Pamela. "He said she told him that she wasn't sure about marrying you, that she felt trapped but didn't know how to get out of it," Rebecca continued. "But then he also said she would never leave you because you were stable and safe." The betrayal felt deeper with each revelation. It wasn't just a moment of weakness or a recent mistake. It was a calculated deception that had been going on for most of our relationship. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the head table next to the untouched wedding cake. "The wedding is over," I announced to the remaining guests. "Thank you all for coming, but there will be no celebration tonight." Pamela ran after me as I headed for the exit, begging me to give her a chance to explain, but I couldn't listen to her anymore. Everything I had believed in for the past 3 years turned out to be a lie. "Please, Louis." It meant nothing. It was just physical. "I love you." "I was going to end it after our wedding," she cried, grabbing at my sleeve. "After our wedding?" I turned to face her. "You were planning to continue cheating on me even after we got married?" Her face went white as she realized what she had just admitted. "That's not what I meant," she stammered. But I was done listening. I walked out of that hotel and never looked back. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Since we weren't technically married yet, the ceremony had been interrupted before we signed the marriage certificate. The legal proceedings would be simpler than a divorce. However, there were still financial matters to resolve. We had signed a lease together, opened joint accounts, and made various purchases in preparation for our married life. The lawyer advised me on how to protect my assets and disentangle our finances. I had to cancel our honeymoon to Hawaii, losing the deposits we had paid. The wedding venue kept most of our money since the cancellation was so last minute. Between the lost deposits and legal fees, the whole ordeal cost me nearly $15,000. Over the following weeks, more details about Pamela's affair came to light. It turned out that Kevin wasn't the only one. A mutual friend revealed that Pamela had been involved with at least 2 other men during our relationship, though Kevin was the most serious affair. Jennifer later told me more about what she had witnessed. She had suspected something was wrong for months, noticing how Pamela would change the subject whenever Kevin's name came up, how she would get defensive when asked about her whereabouts, and how she had started working extra shifts that didn't seem to result in any additional income. "I followed her that Friday night because I had to be sure," Jennifer explained. "When she said she was coming to my house for the Bachelorette party, but then I saw her car heading in the opposite direction, I knew something was up." Jennifer had actually spent that entire evening documenting Pamela's affair, taking photos and videos that clearly showed the timeline of events. She had been planning to confront Pamela privately first, but when she learned that I was completely unaware, she decided to reveal everything at the wedding. "I know it seems cruel to do it so publicly," Jennifer said, "but I felt like if I told you privately, Pamela might convince you it was all lies or jealousy. This way, with all the evidence and witnesses, you'd know the truth beyond any doubt." But Jennifer's motives weren't entirely altruistic, as I would learn later. The aftermath was devastating for both our families. Pamela's parents were mortified by their daughter's behavior and called to apologize to me personally. They offered to cover some of the wedding expenses since their daughter was the one who caused the cancellation. "We raised her better than this," her father said when he called. "I don't know what happened to her, but what she did to you is unforgivable." My own family rallied around me, offering support and helping me move my belongings out of the apartment Pamela and I had shared. It was painful going through our things together, deciding what belonged to whom, seeing all the photos and mementos of what I thought had been a happy relationship. My younger sister Amanda was particularly angry about the situation. She had always been protective of me, and seeing me hurt this way brought out her fierce side. "I never liked her," Amanda said as we packed up my books. "There was always something fake about her smile. Like she was acting all the time." "Why didn't you tell me that before?" I asked. "You were so happy with her. I thought maybe I was just being overprotective. I wish I had trusted my instincts." Kevin, meanwhile, had disappeared completely. He quit his job without notice and moved away, leaving no forwarding address. Some coworkers mentioned that he had family in another state, but nobody knew exactly where he had gone. His sudden departure left our team at the auto shop short-handed, which created additional stress for everyone. The boss was furious that Kevin had left without any warning, especially since we were heading into the busy summer season. But the story doesn't end there. 3 months after the wedding disaster, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Kevin. "Louis, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to call and apologize," he said. His voice sounded different, tired, defeated. "What do you want, Kevin?" I asked coldly. "I want you to know that I'm sorry. What we did to you was unforgivable. I was weak and I let myself get caught up in something that I knew was wrong from the beginning." He went on to explain that the affair had started innocently enough. They had run into each other at a bar one night when I was working late. They started talking, one thing led to another, and before he knew it they were meeting regularly. "She told me that you two were having problems, that she wasn't sure about getting married," Kevin said. I know now that was probably all lies, but at the time, I believed her. What Kevin told me next shocked me even more. Apparently, after our wedding was called off, Pamela had immediately tried to start a serious relationship with him. She showed up at his apartment the very next day, claiming that now they could finally be together openly. But I realized that if she could cheat on you, someone who loved her completely and was ready to marry her, what would stop her from cheating on me? Kevin said. I told her it was over, and that's when I decided to leave town. He also revealed that Pamela had been manipulating both of us, telling him that I was controlling and that she felt trapped in our relationship, while presumably telling me that everything was perfect between us. She would show me text messages from you, making it seem like you were demanding and possessive, Kevin continued. But now I realize she was probably editing those messages or taking them out of context to make you look bad. Kevin told me that Pamela had also claimed that our relationship had become sexless and boring, that I never wanted to do anything fun or spontaneous. All lies. As far as I knew, our relationship had its normal ups and downs, but nothing like what she had described to Kevin. I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness, Kevin concluded. I just wanted you to know that I regret everything, and I'm glad that wedding got stopped before you made the biggest mistake of your life. After that phone call, I felt a strange sense of closure. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that, but at least an understanding of how everything had happened. But there was still one more surprise waiting for me. 6 months later, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I quit my job at the auto shop and moved to a different state, Washington, where my cousin had offered me a position at his larger automotive repair business. The move was exactly what I needed. New surroundings, new people, new opportunities to rebuild my life. I found a small apartment near the mountains, bought a motorcycle, and started taking weekend trips to explore the Pacific Northwest. It took time, but gradually I began to trust again. I made new friends, joined a local hiking group, and eventually started dating. I was careful, probably more careful than I needed to be, but I was learning to recognize red flags that I had ignored with Pamela. Jennifer and I stayed in touch. She had moved to Portland for a new job and would sometimes visit me on weekends. There was never anything romantic between us. She was more like the sister I never had, but her friendship was invaluable during those difficult months. You know, she said during one of her visits, I sometimes wonder if I did the right thing exposing everything so publicly like that. You absolutely did the right thing, I assured her. If you had told me privately, I might have confronted Pamela, and she would have found a way to explain it all away. She was good at manipulation. But seeing it with my own eyes in front of everyone, there was no denying what she had done. But then Jennifer said something that made me reconsider everything. Louis, I need to tell you something. The real reason I exposed Pamela wasn't just because I wanted to protect you. My heart sank. What do you mean? I was in love with you, she admitted, looking down at her hands. I had been for years, ever since we first met. I watched you with Pamela, and it killed me to see you so happy with someone else. I stared at her in shock. Jennifer. I know it was wrong. I know I should have told you how I felt before you got engaged. But when I found out about the affair, I saw it as my chance to break you two up. She went on to explain that she had been following Pamela for weeks, not just because she was suspicious, but because she was hoping to find evidence that would end our relationship. I told myself I was doing it to protect you, but the truth is I was doing it for selfish reasons. I wanted you for myself. This revelation changed everything. Jennifer hadn't been the noble friend I thought she was. She had been manipulating the situation for her own benefit. Are you telling me you made up the affair? I asked, feeling sick. No. The affair was real. Everything I showed you was true. But my motives for exposing it weren't as pure as I made them seem. I felt betrayed all over again. Not only had my fiancée cheated on me, but my best friend had used that betrayal to try to win me for herself. I think you should leave, I told Jennifer. Louis, please. I know it was wrong, but I really did care about you. I still do. You cared about me so much that you manipulated me and destroyed my wedding in public? That's not care, Jennifer. That's obsession. She left that day and I haven't spoken to her since. A year after the wedding disaster, I received another unexpected contact, this time from Pamela herself. She sent me a long email, claiming that she had been going to therapy and wanted to make amends for what she had done. In the email, she admitted to the affairs and acknowledged the pain she had caused. She claimed that she had been struggling with commitment issues and had sabotaged our relationship because she was afraid of marriage, though she couldn't explain why she had continued lying instead of just being honest about her feelings. I know you'll probably never forgive me, she wrote, and I don't expect you to, but I want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. She also revealed some things I hadn't known. Apparently, her relationship with Kevin had continued for several weeks after our wedding was called off, but it ended badly when she discovered he was also seeing someone else. I guess I got a taste of my own medicine, she wrote. Now I know how it feels to be betrayed by someone you trust. Pamela also mentioned that she had lost her job at the cafe after word spread about what had happened at our wedding. The small-town gossip mill had been brutal, and she eventually had to move back in with her parents. I read the email several times trying to feel something: anger, sadness, even pity. But mostly I just felt empty. The person who had written that email felt like a stranger to me now. The Pamela I had fallen in love with had never really existed. I never replied to her email. 2 years later, I met Sarah at a coffee shop in Seattle. She was a nurse who had recently moved to the area for a job at a children's hospital. We started talking about the city, recommendations for good hiking trails, and before I knew it, we had been talking for 2 hours. Sarah was different from Pamela in every way, honest to a fault, straightforward in her communication, and genuinely caring about others. When I eventually told her about my past, she listened without judgment and said something that stuck with me. The fact that someone hurt you so badly and you're still willing to open your heart again shows incredible strength. Not everyone would have that courage. Our relationship developed slowly. I was cautious, probably overly so, and Sarah was patient with my trust issues. She understood that I needed time to believe that not everyone would betray me the way Pamela had. We've been together now for 3 years, and last month I proposed to her at the same lake where I had proposed to Pamela all those years ago. This time, everything felt different, genuine, peaceful, right? Sarah said yes, and we're planning a small, intimate ceremony with just close family and friends. No elaborate video presentations, no surprises, just 2 people who love each other, surrounded by people who love them. Sometimes I think about that disastrous wedding day and realize that Jennifer's intervention, as painful and manipulative as it was, saved me from years of additional heartbreak. Pamela would never have changed, never have stopped cheating, never have become the partner I deserved. Kevin was right about one thing: marrying Pamela would have been the biggest mistake of my life. As I write this, I'm getting ready for my real wedding, one built on honesty, trust, and genuine love. The past no longer haunts me. I've learned to see that terrible day not as the worst day of my life, but as the day that set me free to find real happiness. Jennifer won't be at our wedding, of course. Her betrayal of our friendship was almost as painful as Pamela's betrayal of our relationship. I've learned that sometimes the people who seem to help us are actually serving their own interests. And sometimes the most painful experiences in our lives are the ones that lead us to where we're supposed to be. Sarah and I are planning to move to a small town outside Seattle after our wedding, where we can start fresh together. I've been offered a position managing an automotive repair shop, and Sarah has been accepted for a role at the local hospital. It's funny how life works out. If Pamela hadn't cheated, if Jennifer hadn't exposed her, if I hadn't moved to Washington to start over, I never would have met Sarah. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually the best things that could have happened. I don't forgive Pamela for what she did, and I don't forgive Jennifer for her manipulation. But I'm grateful for the lesson they taught me, that real love is built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. Anything less than that isn't worth having. The scars from that wedding day will always be with me, but they've made me stronger and wiser. They've taught me to value honesty above all else, to trust my instincts, and to never settle for someone who doesn't truly love and respect me. Most importantly, they've taught me that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are actually doing us a favor. They're showing us their true colors before we waste any more of our lives on them. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.